It's December 9th, 2014, and I just left off with the another video segment that I thought was going to be short, and then it ended up not being short at all. But I wanted to follow up with what I was mentioning about Robert Jordan from the FBI and the other individuals that were with him, because what is interesting is that not only was I being tortured and trafficked and sexually assaulted and then made fun of and ridiculed by these individuals, they later, that was when I was young. I mean, that's when I was preteen age. Or younger than that, actually, even. And what happened from that point on is I didn't see Robert Jordan with the FBI again, to my knowledge, that I remember after that time. And what occurred is that a couple of decades later, when I was an adult and back in Oregon going to school at Portland State University, Erica Ballinger was also in school at that time. She was in college going to George Fox University for accounting. And what I find strange is that yesterday when I looked something up about Robert Jordan, it was pretty brief, but it did say that Mueller, the Director Mueller, had been the one to assign him to the Portland, Oregon location. And at the time that he did that was, I guess, in 2002. And what is a little bit strange about that is that it was in approximately 2002. I'm just thinking for a moment. Well, things started to get pretty bad for me in around 2001. And I somehow got myself back into school. I had a short time where I was out of college, and I was actually trying to work in the Portland, Oregon area, and my references were from individuals such as Erica Ballinger, and I hadn't placed her or thought about how I had already met her entire family and all the things that they'd done to me when I was really young, because I hadn't been thinking back into my past at all, and I had not ever connected her, the older teenager and then adult who I knew and who showed up at my school, at my high school. I had not yet connected her to the same Erica, to the same Ballingers from when I was a kid. And the reason why is just because you don't no one expects to be stalked like that, you know, to be living in a completely different area, trafficked to people over across state lines in the first place, and then live apart from them for quite a long time, and then suddenly get thrown in and reintroduced to them when they look totally different, and nobody's disclosing any of the information to you that you really need to know. So, so at the time that Robert Jordan got transferred by Mueller, and Mueller was another agent who hated me. I met him. He assaulted me and showed up on a hike that I took for a college thing that I was involved in when I was young, when I was a kid, when I was preaching. And he was also a Katie Middleton supporter, and you know, it's just sort of strange that all of these FBI agents had no problem bringing her name up. I mean, they really were not trying to protect her as being a subject of interest to them. And maybe that's because they just figured they were going to kill me. So maybe got off on the idea of, you know, rubbing it around in my face, and then, you know, making occasional videotapes about it to send over to who knows who else. And then they thought, you know, she's going to get bumped off by the time she's, before she's 17 years old anyway. Which I do believe was their original plan. But they did not at all hide the fact that they were all interested, seriously interested, in Katie Middleton. And, you know, supposedly all of England and all of the United States, we're all led to believe that she and William never met until she was at St. Andrews. So that's a bunch of, you know what. Because they had been introduced and they knew each other before that. And believe me, the FBI and the Pentagon were determined to make her a royal. And, you know, I think they all sit around thinking they should be congratulated and patted on the back about it, too. Because they killed people over this. And they tortured kids over it. And, as I say, it wasn't, my being tortured and raped was not just all about her, because the United States was doing that to me before she was ever born. And so were the Middletons. Before they even had her, they were participating in torture and sex abuse against me. And people were trafficking my songwriting and my music. So what I think it really came down to is that they trafficked me because I was a pretty little girl, or a pretty baby, and it made them money. And then I think when I became a songwriter, and they realized that I wrote a lot of hit songs, and it was making an excessive amount of money, more than any of the CIA's drug projects ever made. They then became highly motivated to torture me, hold me hostage, and conceal everything from the general public. And at the same time, they were interested seriously in Katie Middleton, or Pentagon wouldn't have been calling my house up to make an announcement on the day that she was born. And, you know, the Pentagon would have no reason to be that interested in her unless she was a person of interest. So but they did begin to really toss it around in my face and act like I was a threat to her. I don't think that they ever thought I was maybe a threat to the person that they wanted her to marry. I don't think that was it. I think that they just knew I had a lot of dirt on all of them. And they thought that my talking about it at an inopportune moment was going to ruin all of their plans. So, basically, this Mueller director did not like me. And I met him on several occasions. I even met him in his own house with his wife before he was director. And I guess when he became director, he assigned Bob Jordan, this other guy he already had to have known hated me, and had himself tortured me with the box at a shooting range. He assigned him to the Portland, Oregon area. And then at that time, as I say, Erica Ballinger, you know, she was out of high school, as I was as well, and she was going to this college for accounting. And then the next thing I found out was that she was interested in working for the FBI. She wanted to work for the FBI, and she was kind of querying me, I think, to see if I remembered that her mom worked for the FBI, and I didn't remember. You know, I wasn't placing her to my past at that time yet. And so, but you know, what's really sad about the entire thing is that the entire time, I mean, for decades, she always knew. I mean, I was not thinking about it, and I was kind of out of the loop on it. But she always knew. And there were a number of those kids, government kids, that knew. And they really took the name of the United States government employee position and taxpayer money and really rubbed it in the dirt. Because here they were all acting like freaking stalkers and bullies of one person. And I think they were getting a cut off of the profits that I was bringing in for the country. I think that it was benefiting them financially and in their little government group. So suddenly Erica was telling me that she was asked to work for the FBI by the FBI, who showed up at her college and was doing recruiting, and she was interested in being an accountant for them. And then she wanted me to talk to them in case they called me. So then the FBI called me and they asked me a few questions about Erica, and I didn't say anything bad about her because I wasn't placing her to some other situations that had happened. And I wasn't at that time completely coming out into the open about how she had, I was figuring out that she had helped facilitate several rapes of me by sons of men who were in the government who raped me themselves first, or whose wives also participated in that. So I gave the FBI some kind of like, oh yeah, she'd be fine, kind of a review. Well, in the meantime, I think that I was getting blacklisted because she was listed as one of my character references, and all I know is that I couldn't get a job anywhere. I mean, I went from being able to work and working at a few places, just getting fully blacklisted, and I mainly started getting blacklisted after I got raped by a different government employee at my college. And after that, it was like all downhill. Like nobody would hire me in Portland just because, some government guy raped me. And I hadn't even made a report to police about it. And yet I was on some sort of a blacklist. And then I finally had someone tell me, as I was wondering, why is it this hard for me to get work when I shouldn't have any problem at all? And, I'm better qualified and can learn faster than many of these other individuals. And then I had a couple of people specifically tell me, you're blacklisted throughout Portland, maybe throughout Oregon. But he definitely said throughout Portland. And it was a professional who sent that to me. And, a couple of times, as I say, if someone gave me a tip or told me something about what was going on, I didn't always necessarily believe them right away because I thought, I never knew what someone's motive was for telling me things. And if it was really true, and if that was the real reason behind it. But it was true. There may have been other reasons behind it, but I was definitely blacklisted. So I was getting squeezed out of being able to even support myself. So I signed up for taking my community college work over to university at Portland State University and started going to college there. And then basically I was focused on that, and I'm pretty sure that, and then Erica was still going to college. So then some other things happened, which I will get into later, but it starts to lead into her role in facilitating some of these government rapes of me, and prior government rapes of me that I can go back and mention too, and how she was connected to those. But from everything that I have pieced together, that I think, which I'm not sure about this because I don't have the human resource records for the FBI offices, but I'm pretty sure that Erica Ballinger got hired on to the FBI sometime around 2004-2005, which would have been about the time that she was graduating from George Fox. And it was after the FBI had made a phone call to check her references. And they already had to have known everything about me and my involvement with her. But they just wanted to find out if I was going to say anything about all of them or not. And the fact that, if she did get hired by them, which I believe she did, and then all of a sudden she was cutting off all communications with me, claiming she didn't talk to me. I think that Bob Jordan gave her a job. Same guy who tortured me with her mother present.